Okay guys, yes, we're back with a new video and yeah, we're back here in my YouTube studio. We will talk today about the Sony A6000, the Sony A6100, we will talk about the Sony A6400, ZV-E10 and the Sony A6700. You can see so many cameras which we will talk about today, and I want to do this buying guide video for you because I have used all of these cameras during my photography journey and I have so much to tell you guys about these cameras, what I think of them, what I like, what I dislike, and at the end of this video I also wanted to give you my opinion on which camera I would buy if I would start over again, which camera is the best, especially if you are a beginner photographer. So yeah, we will start with the Sony A6000, and the Sony A6000, guys, it has been my first camera I've used for photography. And back in 2019, when I started photography, when I started this YouTube channel, I was looking for a camera and I had no clue on cameras at all. I knew that there were so many brands like Canon, Fuji, Sony, and so on, Nikon, you name it, so many brands, but I had no clue at all. And I saw the Sony A6000 and I still wasn't really sure to get it because I was used to other cameras back in the days which were a bit larger. So I'm so happy today that I went for the Sony A6000 as my first beginner camera, because it's a very light and compact camera, guys. There's so much built into this camera. It has 24 megapixels, it has a pretty decent autofocus for the price you pay, and it's an E-mount lens, so you can pair it with so many lenses. It's really good if you're starting out, especially when you're on a very tight budget like I was back then in the days. The camera is overall a great camera and I've done so many photo shoots. It's amazing, guys, that to this day still a lot of my viewers are interested in this camera, and I'm such a big fan and I always will do this. I will always, guys, review the Sony A6000 on this channel, so it's just nice to see that still a lot of people are interested. But guys, I'm really thinking about this camera recently. I have been thinking about this camera a lot, if it's worth it, because the battery life is really something which to this point really gets me. And if you are doing like videos here in the YouTube studio with the Sony A6000, I've done it, guys. I've been through it. The overheating issues are so terrible on the Sony A6000, and it has no 4K. So it worked 2-3 years ago, but it really went on my nerves with the battery, with the overheating. So for photos it's a great entry camera, but for video it was really hard time. So yeah, that is the Sony A6000, and now we will go to the Sony A6100. And I actually bought the Sony A6700 from a good friend when I was using it. It's like the Sony A6000. You could actually say it's very similar from the looks. It has the same build quality. It's also 24 megapixels. It has definitely a better autofocus. And with the Sony A6700 you have 4K, which is very good if you are looking for a very good budget camera with 4K. You also have an audio jack, which is good if you are starting out with videos like this in the YouTube studio, because you can also add a better microphone with the camera. The only thing I dislike about this camera, guys, is definitely the weather sealing. For the money you pay, and you do pay a bit more with the Sony A6100 than the Sony A6000. I also wish they added the weather sealing like with the Sony A6400, which they should definitely do and have done. But it's overall a good camera, guys. It's a really nice camera if you're starting out with video especially. It's a good entry point. So I haven't used it so much than the old cameras, but I would definitely recommend it if you are on a tight budget and if you need that 4K and also the good autofocus. So now guys, we will go to the Sony A6400. And the Sony A6400 guys is also a very popular camera on my YouTube channel. I've done a lot of reviews on this camera, and yeah, the Sony A6400 is definitely one of the, you could also say one of the boss monsters, or I think you know what I mean. It's probably one of the best ones from all of these ones, because yeah, you also have, like, for video, you have picture profiles, and this is a big difference to the Sony A6000 and the Sony A6100. The picture profiles are for video really good, and the weather sealing, which is very nice, and I do like the weather sealing. I mean, for a lot of people it's not a big deal, but especially if you're doing outdoor photo shoots with expensive gear like the Sony A6400, that really helps. It really brings you a bit more chill on the photo shoot. And yeah, you also, with the Sony A6100, you have like this vlogging flip-up screen, which is good. And you also have an audio jack, which you can use. So a very, very good camera overall. Yeah, the only downfall, it is with the batteries very draining, because if you are recording with 4K, also what I experienced was that the batteries also needed a bit more power and the batteries drained. I mean, it is a bit better with the battery life overall, but still don't expect with the Sony A6400 to photo shoot for or do video for hours. It just is a camera with these small batteries you get. This is really a big issue, but there are still other options. But if you are starting out into videography or photography, it is fine. And yeah, the autofocus is insane. Also with the Sony A6100 and the Sony A6400, the autofocus has improved massively. And you can also see here, autofocus is also involved with the series. And yeah, I'm very happy with both of them. So now guys, we will talk about the Sony ZV-E10. And surprisingly, I never really thought about getting this camera. I got it because I was curious about overall the performance. It's a camera which is designed for vlogging, and I used it a lot for photography, so this video is especially right for you if you are using it for photography. And the good thing about this camera is that it is like something new. It's from the quality, from the build quality different. You have the buttons on different areas. You have like the record button on top, which is pretty good if you are vlogging. It's very light and compact, guys. It's even smaller than the Sony A6000. But guys, I had a bit of issues with the Sony ZV-E10 with my hand, because I have huge hands, guys, and for me it's just so small, and I'm not, to this day guys, I'm not getting used to this camera, because when you use the Sony A6000 or Sony A6400, you name it, like the Sony A6100, and then you go to the ZV-E10, for me it's just such a big change. All the buttons are different. I wish they have like this, you have like 3 options. You can do photo mode, or I don't know what the name especially was, but you can definitely see now it's just so difficult to change, and then you don't really know which menu you are, especially if you are doing the autofocus stuff or the photography stuff. I have to go back into the menu. It's just a big pain with this camera for me. Maybe others are different, but I always had issues, not necessarily with the camera. The camera is great for photography, but with handling it with the buttons, it was for me a bit different. But for vlogging, guys, it is a really good camera. You can also, they also have like this dead cat on top, which you can see now, which is really good if you are especially traveling. So it's also good for your audio. It's really nice that they gave this with the box, so also a great feature. So the Sony ZV-E10, guys, you can see I'm very splitted if it's a good camera or not, but I think everyone is different. It depends really on what you do. For me, as a photographer who does a lot of portrait photography, I had a bit of better experiences with other cameras. So now we will go to the final camera, and the camera we will talk about now is the Sony A6700. And I got this camera this year, and when I was using it for the first time, I was blown away. The Sony A6700, guys, the autofocus is amazing. When I was doing video, or even when I was doing portrait photography, it was just so fluent. The autofocus is so good. It never really goes out of focus. It's a very reliable camera. It is also 26 megapixels, which is a good improvement. I love the grip on the Sony A6700, especially with my big hands. It was really a good feature. You also have like a flip-up screen, which you can tilt, which is good. And I actually have fallen in love with this flip-up screen. I use always the tilt-up screen with the Sony A6000, but it is really good to have like the option to change it into so many different directions, and I don't miss it now at all. I really want to have it on all my other cameras now, even the Sony A7 III. It is definitely a good improvement. Yeah, the battery life is also good on the Sony A6700 because they have now the bigger batteries, and I have the Sony A7 III also, so I didn't have to get like new batteries for the Sony A6700, which is good. But I was a bit disappointed because it only has one SD card slot. I don't really know why they didn't add two, but it would be the perfect camera then, especially when you're an APS-C lover. Because imagine you have all the Sigma trio, the Sony A6700 had two SD card slots. You would go on a wedding, you put two SD card slots in. That would be amazing, guys. So it's a bit upsetting that they only added one, but this autofocus on this camera is just, it really makes everything else just a side topic. But the Sony A6700 performed really good, especially when I was using it. I compared it also to the Sony A6000. You can check out all the videos on my YouTube channel, and also Sony A7 III. So the real question now, guys, is which camera should you buy? And the answer is for me very simple, although there are so many different cameras. And from a photographer who started out with the Sony A6000 and now we are in 2024, I would start in the middle and I would go for the Sony A6400. The Sony A6400 is for me, or especially when you're a beginner photographer, the best opinion, because it is, especially recently, I saw so many good prices on this camera. I saw it with the kit lens for around 780 euros, which is just such a good deal. And you have 4K, you have a really good autofocus, you can use it for photography, but you can also use it for videography with the picture profiles, 4K, flip-up screen, it's good for vlogging, the audio jack, the weather sealing, so many amazing things about this camera. And if you are getting more batteries, like what I did, I have so many batteries at home from the Sony A6000 and Sony A6400 and so on, you can just quickly change it and then you can continue, and that is the best decision you can really do. So I would definitely go for the Sony A6400. And yeah, this is this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And what is your opinion on all these cameras? Let me know in the comments down below. And guys, make of course sure to check out all the other videos on my YouTube channel. There are plenty of other videos and reviews, comparisons and so on. Yes, and make sure of course to subscribe. And guys, take care and see you next time. Bye.